On this episode of the Red and Gold Report, we're going to be talking about all the recent Chiefs news, including Melvin Ingram's recent departure from our Chiefs and the debate of who the number one wide receiver on the Chiefs will be. So, first up, in Chiefs news, the Miami Dolphins have signed defensive end Melvin Ingram. Now, the Chiefs traded for Ingram midway through last season, giving our defense a much needed spark. And I know that some Chiefs fans are going to be disappointed about this news. Many fans hope that Melvin would re-sign because, hey, yes, he absolutely played a key pivotal role in turning around our defense after that trade. And for me, yes, I really wanted to have him back to compete with and possibly unseat Frank Clark as the starter. But as I said last season, it was not that Ingram was dynamic or picking up tons of sacks or he was some big time playmaker. No, it was more that he was good. He was good. He was a solid starter at a position where we were so bad that even a competent starter really made a dramatic difference. And of course, his addition allowed defensive tackle Chris Jones to move back inside to defensive tackle after trying to experiment with defensive end. So yes, we would have been better bringing him back, but it's not like it's the end of the world that specifically Melvin Ingram is not returning, because all we have to do is go sign another competent veteran defensive end to get the same sort of result. The same sort of result of having a competent end that could compete with Frank Clark. Oh, and also, due to the Chiefs recently applying a seldom used UFA tender on Ingram, he will, fortunately, factor into the compensatory draft equation in the Chiefs' favor in the 2023 draft, which is a good thing. However, I really would like to see the Chiefs still add one more veteran edge rusher if possible. Again, to unseat Frank Clark from the starting lineup. Yes, I know this appears unlikely, as it appears the Chiefs think Clark is an actual starter in the league, but he has struggled so badly in the regular season for years that we can still dream as Chiefs fans that they'd make a shrewd move here that would at least create competition for him and maybe give him some better effort if we can light a fire through that competition under his butt, right? So, with Melvin Ingram gone to Miami, who could the team possibly add at defensive end? Well, here's an idea. How about trading for Chicago defensive end Robert Quinn? I mean, they've already realized that they're looking at another losing season, and they've been seemingly shopping Quinn already. Quinn had 18.5, that's 18.5 sacks last year. That's a ton. The sticking point would be that $12.8 million base salary that he'd be carrying over, but it's still something we can dream about, right? Or heck, go out and sign Jadeveon Clowney, Justin Houston, Carlos Dunlap, Ryan Kerrigan, or any veteran to just give Frank Clark some competition. But here's my point. The Chiefs aren't ready to go into the season with their current defensive line. Yes, I'm really pumped about George Karlaftis. Yes, Chris Jones is an absolute all-pro. And I do think Karlaftis was one of the steals of the draft. But as excited I am about those two players, I do have to admit, Karlaftis, he is still a rookie. And yes, Mike Dana and Joshua Kando, they're just fine if they end up as the fourth and fifth defensive ends in the rotation. But we saw how disastrous it was to go into last season actually thinking those guys could be starters or thinking Frank Clark was a star pass rusher. We've got to at least find somebody who can just compete with him at the edge. So it has to happen. Pretty please. And hey, real quick, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, it would mean a lot to helping these videos make it out to all Chiefs Kingdom. So hit subscribe and like, notification bell, all of those things on the Red and Gold Report on YouTube. In other news, there's been some online chatter recently wondering about the question of who is going to be the Chiefs' number one wide receiver this year. Will it be Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez, Scantling, Sky Moore, or Mecole Hardman? They all have some different attributes you can really argue for. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about who you think is most likely to become the number one wide receiver for the Chiefs this year. But here's my take. I actually think that this debate is missing the point. For a few years, really for a while now, the Chiefs had a true elite number one wide receiver in Tyreek Hill. However, last season, the Chiefs really lacked a second and third option in their wide receiver room. So there were stretches of games where, well, defenses were able to cover Hill and Kelsey. And so the passing game struggled because there really weren't any other legitimate receiving options. Over the offseason, the Chiefs did not replace Tyreek with a one big money, true number one wide receiver. Instead, they now have four talented wide receivers, each having a different skill set and each having a very different body type. And while none of them will live up to Hill as a number one wide receiver, you can be sure that we have improved our second and third wide receiver options. I mean, even if just for debate, you put Juju Smith-Schuster as the number one wide receiver in your head, sure, he's not close to Tyreek from last year, so that's a downgrade. But wow, MVS and Sky Moore possibly replacing Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson, that is an upgrade. Probably a really big upgrade. And of course, you also have Mecole Hardman returning. So I think that it's actually less of a debate about a number one wide receiver and who's going to be this number one wide receiver. I think it's more a debate of how's the whole scheme going to change to make sure we have a better second and third and fourth option in the wide receiver room. In other Chiefs news, the Chiefs traded up, of course, in the first round of the draft to snag Trent McDuffie, and it is looking more and more like a better move as we're receiving more information about this trade. The Chiefs traded up with the New England Patriots to snag the 21st position in the first round. That's 9 spots that they bumped up, but crucially, one of the 9 teams that the Chiefs were able to leapfrog with that trade was the Buffalo Bills. Since the draft, information is leaked that it makes it seem like the Bills were also in the market for a corner. And, well, I believe it because they drafted a corner. But it also seems some of this information that has gotten out has made it seem like they were kind of caught off guard by the Chiefs trading up into that spot. In fact, it would appear that the Chiefs' aggressive move to snag a corner sent Buffalo almost panicking, leading them to trade up from the 25th to the 23rd spot to take the final first round drafted corner in Kaiir Elam. So, well, it seems like the Chiefs trade to move up was not only necessary, since the Bills would probably have taken McDuffie, but wonderfully smokescreened. And it'll be interesting to see if people compare McDuffie and Elam for years to come, with the two taken so closely to one another and with the Chiefs leapfrogging the Bills to get McDuffie. In other news, Chiefs linebacker Nick Bolton is changing his number from 54 to 32. Bolton wore the number 32 in college at Mizzou, but coming in as a rookie in 2021, of course, Tyrann Mathieu was already sporting the number 32, forcing Bolton to pick a different number. With Tyrann gone, though, Bolton's returned to his familiar number at Missouri. Interestingly, current rookie Leo Chanel then immediately snagged up number 54. And for me, well, I'm so old school, I still think of Marcus Allen when I think of a Chiefs player sporting the number 32 on his jersey. In other news, the Chiefs are now speculated to possess 12 draft picks in the 2023 draft. We hold all 7 of our own picks, then we have an extra 4th and 6th round pick from our trade of Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins. Then we have an extra compensatory pick in the 3rd round when Ryan Poles signed to be the general manager of the Bears. We got that. And, well, then we're going to likely pick up a 7th rounder for defensive tackle Jerron Reed, signing with the Packers. And now we'll likely receive another compensatory pick because we tendered Melvin Ingram and he signed with the Dolphins. So if my math is correct, that's 12 picks total, which is pretty excellent news. In other news, the 2022 schedule was released late last week. I know I made like a whole video just about the schedule, but man, the more I think about it, the more brutal it seems. Here's another fun fact about the Chiefs schedule. Our Chiefs are one of only 4 teams, yes, 4 teams, to have a 3-game stretch of only away games next season. Yeah, one of only 4 teams to have a 3-game stretch of away games. Also, pretty expectedly, but still a fact, the Chiefs have the hardest strength of schedule of any team in the now crowded AFC West. I mean, the more you examine this schedule, the more difficult it looks. But hey, we're the best team in the league. That's what we believe as fans, right? With the best quarterback in the league. So I don't care how hard the league makes our schedule. We're going to win games. We're going to get to the playoffs. And then that's where Mahomes does Mahomes magic. And, well, things happen. Oh, and in another weird scheduling quirk, the Chiefs will not face a team coming off their bye during the 2022 season. Thought that was interesting. In other news, the Chiefs center Creed Humphrey has landed on PFF's list of the top 25 players in the league under 25 years old. So congrats to Creed. And in transaction news, the Chiefs have signed another rookie minicamp tryout player to a contract, with former Toledo offensive tackle Vitaly Gurman joining the squad. Well, that about does it for me, but what do you think? What do you think about Melvin Ingram headed to Miami? Did you want to have him back? Who do you think the Chiefs' top receiver will be next year? Or do you think it should even be a debate? Take a second to subscribe to this channel, like the video, leave a comment, hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and go Chiefs!